There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it were clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always had my back, my guardian soldier. Team put together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, ride. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper.
And we're live. This is episode 9 of the Mental for Moto show. I'm your host, Pete Wolf. Here at Mental for Moto, it's been a busy few weeks. We've been flat out recording podcast content, designing a new line of merch, which has just arrived at our studio, and working on a bunch of other great content for our website and the like. All of this will be rolling out in the coming weeks. Before we get started, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to the sponsors of this show. Death Grip Products. Designed by riders for riders, the Death Grip Reaper glove is all about optimum feel and function. Visit deathgrip.store or simply click on the link below and use the code MENTAL23 for a whopping 35% off your next pair of Reaper gloves. And while you're there, check out some of the other cool merch they have available too. Works Racing. Works Racing goggles offer a premium quality goggle and roll-off system at a fraction of the price of most other systems on the market. The wet winter weather is now upon us, so keep your vision clear. Click on the link below and order yourself a pair of Works Racing goggles today. And finally, Wolf Building Compliance and Fire Protection. Having a quality fire extinguisher in your trailer and workshop is one good way to make sure that your valuable dirt bikes and accessories don't accidentally go up in flames. Visit wolfbc.net or click on the link below and use the contact form, and the guys at Wolf will be sure to look after you. All right, let's get into it. We've got a great show lined up for you today. I'm genuinely excited to bring you our industry guest for this episode, Stephen Tuff, who has joined me here in the Wolf Den. One of my goals when I started the podcast was to give listeners an opportunity to get to know people working behind the scenes in the moto industry a bit better. Stephen started out his career in the industry working for the biggest dirt bike print magazine in the country, Australasian Dirt Bike magazine, or ADB as it's more commonly known, way back in 1998. Since then, Stephen's 20-plus year career in the industry has been diverse. A long-time motocross and off-road motorcycling journalist, his career has also seen him working as a photographer, an assistant editor, a brand manager, and more recently a bike tester. He also remains a regular contributor to ADB. Stephen's role has largely been that of a storyteller, using his talents to bring to life stories about events, bikes, and other riders through his words and photos. In a career that's been largely focused on shining the spotlight on those around him for the last 2 decades, though, the adventures that Stephen's had in the process, the people he's met and worked with, and the places he's seen make his story just as cool and interesting as just about anyone he's covered throughout his time in the industry. Alrighty, welcome to the studio, Stephen. Oh, what do you prefer first?
Mate, I'll answer to anything, but life has just dished up Tuffy and it's
Tuffy?
stuck, not for any other reason than that was my father's nickname and my grandfather's nickname, and that's just how it is.
Too easy, Tuffy it is.
All right.
Oh, welcome to the studio, Tuffy.
Thank you, mate. It's actually really cool to be asked to be on the show, so thanks.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. You've had a pretty interesting sort of role in the industry and you've got a lot of stories, so yeah, I'd love to hear some of them tonight.
Well, I'll do my best.
No, all good. So might as well start off. Tell me a little bit about your role in the industry and what you do and just about yourself.
Currently, I'm a regular contributor to Australasian Dirt Bike magazine,
Yep.
ADB, which was, I guess, the Bible back in the day. When I was a kid, every month when it came out, I'd read it from cover to cover twice.
Yep.
So, yeah, these days I'm a contributor. So, basically, I'm a non-contracted subcontractor.
Yep.
That, I'll probably file 1 or 2 feature stories a month, And,
Okay, yeah.
and that's about it. Oh, no, I'm luckily enough to be on the roster there to have a long-term test bike, so I'll deliver a monthly update on that as well.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, we'll get onto that a bit later when, we'll talk about some of your riding as well. But how long have you been at ADB for?
This time, when did I start? I think it was 2015. I started back with these guys.
Yep.
Originally, I started with ADB at the tail end of 1998.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as a contributor, and took the full-time role as assistant editor there for a little over 12 months.
Yep.
And then I moved on, and then, as the years passed, I worked for some other publications. But, back where it all started.
Yeah. Has your passion always been riding or as in writing?
No, not at all. Academically, I was not there.
Yeah.
School was not for me, secondary school. I didn't apply myself and probably didn't have great guidance on what schooling could do or where you could go.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make enough money, get a job, make money so I could ride dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And, the writing part of it came later. My sister was working at the Great Southern Star, the newspaper in Leongatha.
Okay,
It's no longer there. And so I used to hand write stories on local racing.
Yep.
And send them in with her on Monday mornings, and they would run them in the paper.
Yep.
Because it was just out of frustration, being in Country Vic. If you didn't play footy, you were no one.
Yeah,
And dirt bikes was just this sort of grubby hobby that people did. It wasn't considered a sport by any means. And I felt that wasn't the case, and I wanted the people to know. So that's how my writing started, these handwritten notes for the local
that's very
paper.
cool. Yeah. Yep. So it was your passion for the sport that got you into the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just loved to ride and got into racing, motocross initially, and then into the off-road scene. And I probably, now that I think about it, selfishly, I probably thought if I could get a little bit of exposure for what we do, I might get a discount on bikes or parts or whatever to help my riding. But that never eventuated. Yeah.
So how did it all start with Australasian Dirt Bike then back in the day?
Oh, mate, it's such an unconventional roadmap to get to where I got to. But in 1998, ADB ran what they called the Supercross Super Tour. It was the first time they ever did it. They dreamt up this idea that they would take 10 paying customers to the States.
Yep.
We'd go and watch the final round of the AMA Supercross at Sam Boyd Stadium in Vegas. Then the following week was the first round of the AMA Outdoors at Glen Helen. So we'd be essentially the editor and the advertising manager at the time. They were our tour guides.
Yep.
And I saw this and just thought, this is unbelievable. Like, this is stuff
it's a bucket list trip.
Oh, mate, it was insane. And it was all listed. We'd go to the Fox headquarters. We'd go to Pro Circuit. We go to Bill's Pipes. And, stuff that it would just seem so Hollywood to us.
Yeah.
And convinced a mate that we should go. And we paid it, I think it was $2,000 or whatever for the flights and the whole shebang. And I went on that. And it was an incredible experience. But I kept a travel diary of the whole thing. And the editor of the magazine at the time, Andrew Clubb, he heard a piece of that diary and he thought it was entertaining, and he asked me if he could run that as the feature story on that trip, and he did. So on that return flight from LA back to Sydney, I sat up all night and rewrote out my whole diary for this entire trip and gave it to him. And he ran that as a story, and then not long after offered me a regular monthly column in the magazine, and that turned into assistant editor's position, and off we went.
What a job interview.
Highly unusual.
Yep.
Something that I would never dream of, but it opened up my whole world from a country kid in South Gippsland, Victoria. And I had a swag, a bag of clothes and an esky and a deck chair that my mum had given me for my 21st birthday. And I hopped in my ute and I drove to the northern beaches of Sydney to start this new career that I knew nothing about. Like I was in the deep end.
Yep.
Some of the listeners may find this unbelievable, but it's true. When I was at high school, it was still called high school then, we had a class called computers. And I thought, what a waste of time.
These things are never going to go anywhere.
Nah, this does not apply to my life. So I never used one.
Yeah.
I knew how to turn it on because I recognised the on button, But when I started at ADB that first day, they said, okay, this is your desk, this is your computer. And I panicked.
Yeah.
Like I said, I knew how to turn it on, but that was it. Email was only just coming in.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
So the old woodpecker typing style came out?
Still do, yeah. 2-finger typer from hell. And I'd never used a camera. So, it was a steep learning curve.
Perfect candidate for a journalist.
Indeed.
Yeah. So how long were you there for your initial stint with ADB?
All up, it was a bit over 12 months. But ADB went through a really big transition in that time. So Vicky Huston, who was the life partner of Jeff Aldridge, who created the magazine, she still owned it and ran it. And so we were in this industrial building in the northern beaches of Sydney, and we just produced ADB.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was incredible. And then about 6 months after that, Vicky sold the magazine to EMAP Publishing, which was a big British-owned publishing company that had massive titles, like huge names like FHM and Tracks and Wave Surfing Magazine, Slam Skateboarding, Playboy Australia. It was big time.
Yep. So it became more of a corporatized business.
Absolutely, yeah. And I wasn't from that world. So the magazine moved into a big high-rise in Haymarket in Sydney, and I didn't see a dirt bike for months. So that really changed my trajectory. And with that came a new editor that I thought was from Mars. I did not understand him. I'm pretty sure he didn't understand me, and I hated him, and I had to leave.
And where did you go from there?
Well, so I didn't like the bright lights of Sydney, right? So I bought a one-way ticket to London for some reason, and decided that I'd just be an anonymous beer drinking backpacker for 12 months and see where the world took me. And that's what I did. But
so no motorbikes?
Yeah, I couldn't stay away from them.
Yep.
I ended up at the Motocross the Nations that year down in Saint Jean d'Angely. Is that how you say it? Yeah, in France. So that was incredible. That was amazing. That was Chad Reed, Michael Byrne, and Andrew McFarlane.
Yep.
Was the Aussie team at the time.
Unreal.
Yeah, and Andrew was pitted in the Kawasaki truck with Ricky Carmichael.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I wandered through the pits and I saw the Aussie boys, and they just didn't really want to know me, except for Chad's mechanic at the time, Dave Suter. He said g'day to me and was quite friendly. And then I thought, I'll go and see where Ricky is. And he was Andrew, and with his wife Natalie, and they invited me in. And
did you have a previous relationship with any of them from your time at ADB?
No, I knew them. I'd done a few jobs with Chad. He was a regular columnist.
Okay.
And actually, the first cover I ever shot for ADB was of Chad on a RM 125 up at his house.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, so I did know the guys to say hello to, whatever. But yeah, we weren't mates.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so that was super nice of Andrew, though. I was forever grateful that he got me in out of the hot sun and offered me a drink and gave me his time to hang out. And I just thought, how cool is this place?
Yeah. I have to digress a little bit. What was the destinations like back in, that was really one of the golden ages of motocross?
It really was when you think about it. So we had Carmichael Pastrana and Ryan Hughes was the US team. So yeah, it was a powerhouse team. But I was living about an hour and a half north of London at the time. And there was a weekly newspaper, a motorcycle newspaper. And there was an ad by, I don't know if it was a motorcycle club or if someone just decided they'd make a few bucks out of running a bus down to the race.
Yeah.
And so I just paid my money. Oh, geez, I think it was Portsmouth. I had to meet the bus. Obviously, we needed to get on a ferry, get across whatever. And I knew no one on this thing. And yeah, I actually need to go back through my diary. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't even remember where I slept. I just honestly can't remember. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
But that race was crazy. The crowd was bananas. It was huge. It was massive.
Is it like the crowd? Is it like soccer-esque where they're just so, so passionate and
yep, the yelling
right
and the screaming.
It
was deafening. Yeah,
yeah.
It was nuts. So my all-time favorite rider, Jean-Michel Bale, he was there signing autographs, and sadly, it was one of those situations where they say don't ever meet your heroes, because he didn't really show much interest in wanting to have a chat or
that's
even
sad,
a photo. Yeah, I mean, to me, he's still the GOAT, but
for sure.
it was his home crowd, and he was probably in high demand that day. But the atmosphere of that place is unbelievable. And I don't know if you've seen the track; it goes up and down this hill, and it's quite steep.
Probably on TV.
Yeah, it's
never does it justice.
It's incredible, and for that crowd and for that race, like, it was a big deal for Pastrana to do what he did that day on the 125, and he beat the hometown hero.
Yeah,
but passed him down this hill, and the crowd just it was a lot like the soccer crowd. It was deafening. They went ape. It was so cool.
That is so cool. It's you hear a lot that the audiences and the crowds in Australia are quite reserved, especially compared to Europe and even compared to the US. But the European crowds have a reputation for going wild.
Yeah, and particularly that event, the Motocross of Nations, as it's called now. You know, there was a lot of pride on the line, and particularly that rivalry between the World Motocross GP riders and the AMA riders, like who really is the best.
Yeah.
And for the Americans flexing their muscle on foreign turf, you know, that'll get the crowd amped all the time.
And they did it for a long time too.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, I think America not being such a big player in the Motocross of Nations now has actually taken a little bit away from the event.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd love to see the best of the best battle it out, because, you know, there's forever that question, who is? And I know that the tracks are different and whatnot, but, you know, it's like anything. Once the gate drops, you've chosen to be there.
Yeah.
You live by the sword.
It makes me wonder, having Jet Lawrence and Hunter Lawrence and such a strong Australian presence now, but they're obviously based in the US, whether that will sort of take over and they'll become the main rivals, and, you know, they're quasi-American anyway.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be great, though, to see those two? And I don't know, who do you have as the number 3?
There's a lot of riders that could take that seat.
Yeah, is it Mitch Evans or is it Ferris or...
Ferris would be good. He's got a bit of worldly experience.
Well, yeah, he does. And I mean, he's considered a veteran really now, even though that he's showing everyone his rear wheel at the moment.
His speed is just crazy. When he's on, he's on.
That guy, you just can't count him out.
Yep. And there's young guns like Aaron Tanti. I think he's got a long way to go. Kyle Webster as well.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of potential to do well on the world scene. And I know he's got aspirations to go to America and do some racing over there. Obviously, Jed Beaton's raced MXGP. So
there's a lot of depth here. And it's interesting you mentioned Kyle. He's someone I watch with interest. I think, in your words, a lot of potential. That kid could go anywhere, I think.
Yeah. So after going to London, how'd you get back? Did that sort of whet your appetite again to get back into the moto journalism, or?
No, not really, because I left ADB in a hail of bullets.
From you or at you?
From me. Yeah, I emptied the magazine that day. Not the physical magazine, but the metaphorical gun magazine.
Bridge burnt?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I set fire to it and I was happy to do so. I was really not happy there. When the change of ownership came a different publisher. And financially, I was going backwards. I was on $26,000 living in Sydney, paying $140 a week for my half of a 2-bedroom unit. Back when I was working for Vicky, I had the ADB van or ute and a fuel card, which helped immensely.
Yeah.
And then that was just taken away from me straight away when we went to EMAP, and Andy Wiggum was the new editor, and he was incredibly hard to work for. Never knew which quiet Andy I was going to have on any given day.
Yeah, that makes things difficult.
Yeah, it was really hard, and I tried and it didn't work. And being young and really green, I didn't know how to handle it. And
how old were you at that stage?
I was 25.
Yep.
Yeah. So I told him what I thought of him and the way he went about things, and we tried to make it work, but it only lasted a few more weeks, and then I bailed. So when I came back from London, I thought, well, I'm done with the industry. They won't touch me. And then I caught up with Andrew Clubb, who originally hired me at ADB.
Yeah.
And he said, what are you doing? And I said, just odds and ends. You know, picking up work here and there. I might go back to London or whatever. And he basically told me to pull my head out of my ass and start working. And so I did. So I started submitting stories to Cycle Talk newspaper, Australian Motorcycle News, and then he started at Dirt Action and just threw me work everywhere. And I started to get quite busy. And then in 2000 and end of 2003 or 2004, I can't quite remember, there was a one-off publication that Dirt Action used to do every year. It was called Trail Rider, and they wanted to take that to quarterly, so 4 issues. And so I took that on as editor and stayed there for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, increased it to a bi-monthly magazine, and did a 10-year stint there, so that was good.
So how did it come about that you ended up back at ADB?
Well, I finished up with Trail Rider. My contract expired, and there was no option to continue there. I still remember the day I had that conversation with the middle management there at Trail Rider. It didn't work out.
Yep.
Hopped in my car, left the meeting, picked up the phone and rang ADB, and they said, "When can you start?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Been there since.
Oh, the bridge obviously wasn't as burnt as you might have thought.
Well, there'd been a lot of quite a number of different editors through that place at the time. And Mitch Lees, who's there now, I'd met him through various industry bike, releases or product launches or whatever, and he was a nice guy. And, we obviously knew each other from that. And then he just said, "Yep, when can you work? When can you start?"
Yep.
Yeah, and it's been great, and it's just been a handshake deal ever since.
So what are your sort of thoughts on the industry in general, like the current state of media when it comes to motocross? I mean, print media I think must be quite difficult these days.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, print media took a bit of a hit, and it's been well publicised that there's been some big magazines fold in fashion industry or women's magazines, and you don't see the girly magazines anymore. The internet has played a huge part in that.
Yep.
And the website's gained a bit of traction, but then I feel like they sort of hit a plateau. But social media has been huge. So it's changed the game. Like if I want to see a race result or whatever, I'm on Instagram. Like I can see who's doing what in the AMA, like bang, straight away.
Yep.
So as far as news and current, time critical things go, the magazines can't fill that void anymore. That's gone. The Instagram or whatever, they don't story tell.
Yeah, of course.
So the magazines is still a form of entertainment.
Yes.
So there's still a place for it. And we still sell a lot of copies. It's not like the golden days were in sort of the mid-2000s. And I think, to be honest with you, the publishers have pulled back.
Yes.
So it's almost like they're self-sabotaging what they do.
Yep.
Print's not dead. It's still there. People still consume it. There's still ads. It's still one of the best places to place an ad.
Yep.
It's just different now. It's more storytelling rather than a newsy thing.
And I think that desire for storytelling is alive and well. I mean, that's how podcasts have
100%
gotten so popular.
Yeah, podcasts are great. Everyone thought, radio would die out. Radio's not dead. The magazines still have their place because there's that want for storytelling and the visual side of it. But it's the same way that podcast came about. It's storytelling.
Yeah.
You've still got that instant gratification you can get from your phone, from Instagram or Facebook or whatever else, Snapchat or whatever people use. But you still want to be entertained. And a magazine is something you can pick up, put it on your coffee table, put it down, come back to it, pick it up. And there's the visual side to it. So it's still a place for it.
Yeah, for sure.
But the publishers need to realise that they need to change the game. But in the glory days, like when we were selling, well over 20,000+ copies a month, we were pushing copy sales. So we'd be having subscription drives, like you'd run a prize for people to subscribe. You'd go to the trade shows and offer buy 3 issues for $15 or whatever it was. Like we were pushing. Yep. And they don't do that anymore. They won't invest in it. And they wonder why sales drop off. In COVID, when we couldn't travel, so every airport's got a news agent.
Yes.
They're so busy. And when the airports shut down, copy sales really took a hit.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, but then when the lockdowns happened, subscriptions spiked. So consumers still want to consume magazines. It's just a different game.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of airport news agencies, that's actually how I developed my interest in dirt bikes in general, and it was through ADB.
There you go.
So I was about 8 or 9 years old, and we went on holiday up to Queensland with the family, and I was in the newsagent just perusing, looking for something interesting. And my dirt bike experience at that stage, in total, the sum total was riding a mate's QR50 around his farm.
Yep.
But I saw a copy of ADB magazine, and I still remember the cover was a rider. It was green and gold. It may have been a Destinations edition. I'd love to go back and look at the back copies and see if I could find that edition again. And then I read that, and I started to get an interest. And then Dad took me to the Supercross Masters at the tennis centre, and the rest is history.
Yeah, how cool.
Yeah, so ADB, I'm sure, is responsible for bringing so many people into the sport over the years and keeping people into the sport. And
yeah, well, before digital technology, it was it. That was it. That was the Bible.
Yeah, well, I'm showing my age. This is going back to 88 to 89, so long before the age of the internet.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So ADB isn't sort of your only role in the industry. You kind of do a few other things. I think you've been doing a bit of bike testing as well.
Yeah. I mean, that all sort of stems from ADB.
Yep.
But bike testing was something that I got really interested in when I was at Dirt Action. Scott Bishop was their motocross editor and a really good bike tester.
Yep.
And to me, whenever I hopped on a new bike, I'd be more preoccupied with just trying to ride the thing and get around the track unscathed and not wrecking the bike, whereas Scott could pick the thing apart. And I thought that was an incredible skill to have, and it's something that I've tried to develop. And probably more recently, Ben Grabham, who is a very successful desert racer, enduro racer, flat track racer, he's the best I've seen.
Yes.
He's unbelievable. He's so good at bike testing. That guy can pick things that I didn't even think were possible.
Yeah.
He's a human dyno.
Yeah.
And so I pick his brain a lot, and I've tried to pick up things from him, and he's encouraged me actually to try different things. And testing a bike, it's not what people think, and there's so many facets to it. Like when you test a bike for a magazine, people think they're all rigged. The bike testers, they're not.
It's a promotional.
Not. Yeah. They
an
think,
advertorial.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they've paved the most ads, so they get the bike of the year or whatever. It's just not like that. There's just so many variables in testing a bike, and it depends who you get to test it on what day and what condition the bike can come in.
And the level of rider, I think, plays a big role as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've also seen some riders that are incredibly talented riders that couldn't test an electric fence. They shouldn't be able to test the temperature of a beer. They are hopeless, but they can ride well.
Yeah.
So that's something else that I've learnt to identify over the years. Yeah, it's a funny thing, but it's something I really enjoy. I love getting a new bike and learning it, and then trying to develop it with only the components that it's got. Because most people don't explore that.
Yes,
Yeah, it's something that I really enjoy, but I'm still barely scratch the surface of when I look at how Ben Grabham works with a bike and the way he works around them and makes it work for him. It's a really big skill that he has mastered.
The riding is obviously one thing, and there's the testing as well, but being able to communicate the test and the results and what the bike does, I think that's a big element as well that you obviously have with your background, and that's probably something that suits you well to that sort of role. Yeah,
that's something you develop as well. I never used to be able to. I would, like I said, I'd be more worried about just trying to ride the thing, and then perhaps you'd consider the creature comforts of it or whatever. But now, I can dig a little bit deeper. But that's come from riding so many different bikes in so many different circumstances, and just listening to other people and asking the questions. Like, I'm not too proud to ask what might seem like a dumb question.
Yep.
If I don't know something, I'll just ask because I'd rather know. And I guess that's how you develop.
So when you're testing, is it all about the bike? Do you test it in different sorts of environments and different track conditions? Is it about changing settings? Like, tell me more about what you actually do if you're on a test day, say.
Okay.
How does that sort of play out?
Well, it can vary a bit. So if you've got a bike that belongs to a rider, so you might get a championship winning bike and they'd say, okay, we want you to ride it. So you've got to come at that with the perspective of, okay, what is it? And it might not be set up anything like what you would ride. It could be a total alien. Yeah. And So it's just, I guess it makes you appreciate what the rider is doing
Yes.
and what they look for in a bike. I remember 2005, AJ Roberts won the very first year the Australian Off-Road Championship was held.
Yep.
And he was on a 2-stroke Husqvarna WR250. And I rode that thing and I come into the first corner and I pulled the front brake in and it hit my knuckles and it wouldn't stop. And I was like, there's something wrong with I took it back. I said, there's something wrong with the brake. And he goes, no, that's how I like it.
Spongy.
So it's not about me.
Yes.
It's about them and their bike. So it's a different perspective. But if you get a production bike, well, then I think, okay, they've given me this bike. This is a platform, and how can I...
A stock platform.
Yeah, a stock platform. But there's so many variables in that. And, you know, you come down to the very, very most simple things like, okay, let's put tyre pressures in that are going to work today. What sort of tyres do I have? Let's look at the geometry of the thing. Is the sag being set? Are the fork? Where are the forks and the triple clamps? All these basic little things, and then that's when you just start to move from there, and then you can start playing with suspension and handlebar position and all the rest of it. So within those very basic things, they're all just the little 1%ers that make huge difference. And if you don't get them right, well, you're just chasing your tail.
So how much freedom do you have to actually make those changes when you're testing, say, a stock bike?
It's free reign, really.
Anything within the current, whatever the bike comes with?
Yep, absolutely, yeah. Yep. So generally, if it's a new bike release, the manufacturer or the distributor will send it out with a mechanic or it'll be, you know, with their race team or whatever, because they've got experience with the thing. And now, obviously, it's in their best interest to make you as comfortable as possible with that bike
As
on
quickly
that
as
day.
possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And another thing about that is you've generally got one day and you're not the only media outlet there. So you've got this small window to get on this thing. You've got to get to know it and you've got to get the shots. So you need to illustrate the magazine with these photos, or websites do the same. You've got to get these photos. So you've got a small window to try and get to learn this thing and then write something meaningful and accurate about it. It's a real it's a task.
Yeah, for sure. A lot going on in your mind on the day.
100%, yeah. So generally you get on the bike, you get comfortable, you say, okay, we've got to nail these shots because I know I've got to fill 5 pages or whatever. It's got to look like this, and it's in your brain. Like if it's a photographer you haven't worked with, you've got to figure out if they're going to deliver what you need. And then, okay, how long have I got left? Someone else wants the bike. All right, I'm going. So you just take off on the thing and then try and get to know it. And yeah, it's sometimes it's a bit of a rush. That's generally for a new launch. But if it's a long-term test, like I've got a Beta RR390 racing at the moment.
Yes.
I've just clocked over 4 hours on it.
Yep. Is that through ADB as well?
Yeah, that's through ADB. Yep. Obviously supplied by Beta. So the advantage of them giving us a long-term tester is they get an extended amount of exposure for the bike. And then I'd like to think that we can offer some genuine feedback from a real person. Like it's not a race bike that's been developed to do a specific task. It's a bike that's just got to live through what we put it through over an extended period of time. And with that bike, I'm pretty much free to do whatever I like without going too crazy. So if I was to add parts or whatever, obviously I need to discuss that with them.
Yes.
But just work with what I'm given is what I really enjoy doing.
Yep.
Yep.
And when you're doing these sort of tests, are you sort of a big picture person, or do you focus on like the nitty gritty about this is how the suspension handles and this is what, you know, the steering does? And
oh, mate, I'm not that good.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's the truth of it. I'm not that good of a tester. I'm just an average guy, you know, I'm rocking a dad bod, C-grade rider at best. But I like to think I get to know the bike reasonably well, reasonably quick. And then I usually pick up the phone and say, hey, Grabbo, what do you think about this? I've found this. And 9 times out of 10, I'm on the right path. But I don't dig too deep. If I think I've found my limitations with something, I'll ask someone that's better than me. Steve Powell from SPMX,
Yes.
he's a great example. I love to put him on my bikes because he'll come back with something that I can't recognise.
And he knows them inside out.
Of course he does. Yep. He's so good at it. He's really underrated, I think. But I love having him on my bikes, and obviously, like I said, Ben as well. He's just so knowledgeable. So yeah, I'm not scared to ask someone better than me how to find the answers.
It's cool. I like the idea of, even though you're a bit self-deprecating, the idea of the everyman doing the bike test, because that's probably the level that I'm at, and what 90% of the readers are going to be at. It's all great getting someone like Chad Reed to test a bike, but not everyone rides like Chad Reed and has a bike set up like Chad Reed. So the feedback you would get from that sort of test doesn't really apply to 90% of riders.
Exactly. Well, the other day I thought, oh, geez, it's time I change the oil and the filter on this thing. And like I perform those tasks myself. I live with these tyres. I'll change the tyres and I'll ride it from everywhere from PBI to Cruisix to trail riding, and it'll do different things particularly well in some spots and it won't in others. And that's what you want to know. It's not, I'm not pigeonholed. I'm free to do what I like. And I think that's what guys like us are exactly what we're doing. Just ride whenever you can, wherever you can. And how good is that bike?
Yeah. And you're also the Sherco Motorcycles Australia brand manager.
I was there, I did a 5-year stint there.
Yep.
Yeah, so
what did that involve?
Basically, the brand had been taken over by a new distributor in Australia from the previous one, and they wanted obviously to increase unit sales, and with that came a whole marketing package, everything from creating a race team to running demo days, building a dealer network, the whole kit and caboodle. It was kind of a blank page, to be honest. When I started, I'm not sure they really knew what they wanted. It was fast paced. It was hard work, big hours, but we achieved a lot in 5 years. It was something I really enjoyed. I worked with some great people and some really poor ones, which was so disappointing. But it's a good brand. It's a cool brand with a good product, and it was probably the biggest challenge. There was two big challenges. One was penetrating the market and trying to get the bikes into dealerships.
Yes.
Because dirt bikers are brand loyal by nature.
Yep.
So, it's a Holden Ford mentality. So breaking down those barriers was quite challenging. And then creating the race team from zero, nothing, didn't even have a toolbox, nothing. That was incredibly challenging. And dealing with riders, it was a bit of a golden age in off-road racing, not that long ago. So
what year are we talking?
2015. Now? So we're talking Price, Sanders, Milner, heavy hitters, like world class.
World class, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a golden age. Matt Phillips is in Europe winning world titles, and riders were getting paid mega bucks from other manufacturers, and then here was us trying to get off the ground and get started. Yeah, and you had riders rock up on your doorstep thinking, oh, here's my chance to get free stuff or get a magic carpet ride and get a good wage and ride these bikes, and it just wasn't the reality. We started from a very, very low base, and then you're sort of working with some riders that show great potential, and some of them were fantastic and I'm still friends with today. Others that were well ahead of themselves and extremely difficult to work with. But I'm really grateful for my time there. I did learn a hell of a lot. It was an interesting time, but I've moved on.
So did you end up almost being like a team manager? Was that?
Yeah. That fell on my desk as well. But the workload between that and developing dealers and running demonstration days, it was a huge task. And I enjoyed the hustle. It was really, really cool. But ultimately it was too big. So we brought on someone else to sort of take care of the race team. And it was poorly managed.
Yep.
There was some undermining going on and no real direction from the top level. So that kind of unraveled. And I was this guy stuck in the middle. It was super, super challenging. And ultimately, I think it was perhaps my undoing there as well. There was different ideas about what we should and shouldn't be doing to get bang for our buck, and a bit of push and pull. And I don't know, being commercially minded, I tried to make the right business decisions. And I was let go at the beginning of 2020.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sort of getting the sense that there wasn't a lot of parameters in the role. It was sort of open-ended and you almost got thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, and I knew, I was aware of that, and I took on that challenge.
Yeah.
Because to move into that part of the industry was a big door. Like, it was a great door to open for me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but it was game on. We were taking it very seriously.
I think at face value, it almost sounds like a dream job for a lot of people that are sort of passionate about motorbikes.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a new brand and let's go.
Yeah, especially when you've got a good product.
Yeah.
Because it is a good product. But in some regards, it was a bit of a rudderless ship with decisions made on the fly, and there was no parameters set for certain things. So sort of you go headstrong into a task, and then all of a sudden the brakes would be put on.
Yep.
And then it'd move sideways, and that was interesting. But I learned a hell of a lot about business in that role, and about how to manage people, and perhaps how to identify a few sharks in the water as well.
Okay, so have you come across that a lot in your time in the industry across all your different roles?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. In all of those different roles, they're everywhere. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast on my way here from a total different side of life, and there's bad people in every place.
Of course.
And I like to think that I've got a reasonably good filter. But a few have snuck under the radar and bit me on the bum. But, they're the life lessons that you learn, and it's not always smooth sailing. But, I think I'm fortunate enough that I'm aware to take the good out of every situation and keep developing myself personally and professionally.
Yeah, one of the things I sort of noticed just getting into the media side of things myself is that it's definitely not as welcoming and friendly as maybe your day at the track when you're dealing with riders. Like, riders tend to be quite accommodating. High-level riders will welcome beginner riders will chat, and that's something that's unique to the motocross industry. I think it's very rare that you get to talk to the elites in the sport as just a general person.
Yep. I agree with that.
But I found that, and this sort of goes back to a role that I've held previously, there's people in the media side that almost see themselves as the talent.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And the dirt bike industry is funny because everyone comes into it because it's a passion.
Yep.
No one attacks this industry because they go, you know what, I'm going to go there and make a heap of money, because there is none.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, there is none. So it's a passion. They all come in as perhaps a hobbyist or whatever, and then they've got to kind of make their way and be known and do whatever. And you can get that by, backslapping or, trying to climb social ladders. You can get it through your work ethic and doing a good job and being a good person, or otherwise. And I've experienced some funny attitudes over time as well. And what I've noticed is the guys that are really good at what they do, they're cool.
Yep.
But the other guys that can be a bit salty or whatever, they're usually so insecure about what they're doing that they're trying to keep a distance because they're scared of being exposed, of actually not being that good.
Yeah.
And I've seen it over the years. Plenty of them come and go. There's still a few wankers about, but, they've got their place too, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a hierarchy of any workplace. It just surprised me that I'd come across that in the motocross community. But I guess, like you said, there's people that will rise to the top because they're dedicated and they're passionate about what they do and they're committed to doing a good job. And there's others that bring the people down around them and try and get a foot up that way. So
at the same time, I've seen some really good people step aside because they just don't want to play the game of bullshit anymore.
Yeah. It's not a very nice experience when you have to deal with people like that.
No, it's not. And I've definitely been on the receiving end of it myself. I guess now that I'm a bit older and a bit grumpier, I don't know. I don't really care anymore, and I'm happy to call people out. But it does go on, unfortunately. But it's a funny industry. People try and gain status, not necessarily because of they're a good person or they do a good job, and they think their measure of success is if they can ride on someone else's coattails or how much free stuff they can get out of someone, and it's always short-lived. They disappear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So as part of your roles, you do a lot of photography and journalism. what comes more naturally to you? Is it the photography side or the writing side? You said that you didn't grow up being academically minded and writing sort of, you obviously got a natural talent for it.
I think it's the storytelling. I love it. I've probably rambled on enough on this. People might have picked up that I like to storytell.
No, not at all.
And I call things how I see them, and I write that way, generally speaking. So I will write a story and how the words would come out of my mouth, perhaps a little bit cleaner. But that's my general style, and it seems to resonate with people because they want to hear a real story. So it's the storytelling that I love. But yeah, I did have to teach myself to type. I still only type, I think, with maybe 4 fingers and a thumb or something like that. I can't touch type. And the photography, I've never been good at it, but I've learnt to be good enough to do the job.
Yes.
I'm not passionate about it, but I can take a sharp image and I know what's going to fill the page and be acceptable and of print quality and all the rest of it. But I'd never used a camera until I started at ADB the first time. And Clubby said to me, he goes, "Oh, have you got a camera?" I went, "No." And he goes, "Well, you better bloody get one." And so I didn't even know what to get. And he had a Nikon 801S, so I went and got one of those. And the very first Supercross I covered was at the Entertainment Centre in Sydney. And Barry Ashenhurst was there, and he was the gun. He's the man, the best dirt bike photographer there was.
Yeah.
And I thought, I got to go up and say good day to this guy. And I walked up and I said, "Oh, g'day, Barry. Well, my name's Stephen. Just started ADB." And he looked down at my camera. He goes, "What do you got there, son?" I said, "Oh, it's this Nikon. Like, I just bought it." He goes, "Get rid of it. Get a Canon." And he walked off, and I went and got a Canon. Yeah. So yeah. I just learnt from guys like him, Shannon Warner, who was at Dirt Action for a long time. He taught me a lot, and I guess the rest of it I just picked up along the way.
I think, especially with motocross, you can tell a lot of stories with photos as well, though.
Yeah, you can. It's just you don't have a lot of places to put them these days.
Yep.
And there's been so many people come and go that have muddied the waters with photography. So generally what happens, some hobbyists will come along and I go, "Oh, yeah, I'll do the rounds to the media and I'll do these shots for you for $30 a day or whatever." And of course, publications or websites are out to make money, so they take the cheap guy.
Yes.
So then I'm out of a gig. And then the cheap guy does it for a few months and goes, "Oh, there's no money in this." And then he starts to get a bit salty and then he disappears and then the next guy comes along and it's a bit of a tricky one. So a lot of those guys come and go. But there's some out there that are exceptional and are still in the game.
Yeah. So it's definitely not your passion, though.
No, it's not my passion. I used to love picking up motocross action.
Oh, for sure.
Back in the day, and their photos, I just thought, wow. And then Simon Cudby, I used to look at his shots and just go, "How do you do that? That's so cool." And when was it? It was probably 6 months into my ADB stint the first time when Clubby left to travel the world, and we didn't have a new editor yet, so they brought in a guest editor, a guy called Mark Correa, who is a well-known US dirt bike moto journalist.
Yeah.
And he came out and he kind of took me under his wing for a bit and gave me some tips on how to shoot. And he's still doing it in the States for Dirt Rider and whoever else. He's a weapon.
Yep.
And so I'm grateful to have learnt a few tricks from him as well.
Oh, you've had a few cover shots, though, haven't you?
Not heaps.
No? Oh, you've had some, though.
Yeah, I've had some. Yeah,
well, that's one is enough. So.
Yeah, it's always cool.
Yeah, photography is not my passion. I'm not that good, but I've had a few cover shots on motocross magazines. I think anyone would be envious of that.
All right. It's a thrill. It is. It's still a thrill to see your shot on the cover.
Yep. Did you take the shot of the TM, the pink TM?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig that bike. I saw it under the MMR racing tent. I think they had one under there.
Oh, right.
Because they race TMs.
Okay.
And I love a pink bike. My bike is mostly pink. And
it's fuchsia, in fact.
Fuchsia.
It's not pink. It's not salmon. It's fuchsia. There you
go. Did you get a chance to ride that one?
No, I didn't. Man, some funny things go on when you go to a dirt bike shoot. And that was that day. For layman's terms, I'm a subcontractor, right?
Yep.
So I work on my own time, I invest my own money, I get the product, I sell it to the magazine, they publish it. About 6 weeks after it's published, I eventually get paid.
Yes.
So it's a long time.
Yep.
So that day, I was there to ride that bike and another bike, same bike, that was from 1995. So we're going to compare the two. We get there, that bike won't run. Okay, change plans, change the whole editorial plan. That's cool, no drama. We'll ride this new bike. So we're getting that done. We're halfway through the shoot, and I'm cruising around in a Land Cruiser with the owner of that bike, and we get bogged, horrendously bogged. We're stuck in the bush. So, how did we get out of that? Oh, someone was following us on another bike. So by the time we went and got a recovery vehicle, got that done, got pulled out, finished the shoot, the day was over.
Yeah.
And then coming home, I wasn't concentrating. I was deep in a conversation, and I got pulled over by the police for being 18 kilometres over the limit.
Oh,
And I copped a hefty fine.
that's painful.
And because those stories were cut in half, my pay was cut in half, and then it was, almost cut in half again.
Yeah, you didn't just send your fine in and say, work expense.
No, they actually ran it in the fail page, and it was pretty much, sucked in, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, the cops just took 3/4 of your paycheck.
Yeah, the joys of being self-employed.
So I can get a real sense of how passionate you are about dirt bikes, and it sounds like you've been that way for a long time. How did it all start? Where does your passion come from?
Mate, I've been asked this a few times, and I've tried to write this before, and I don't honestly know. I've got this faint memory of being at a motorbike shop with my father, and I was perhaps 4, and he was there to pick up a chainsaw or a mower or something. We definitely weren't there for bikes. There's no history of bikes in my family whatsoever.
Yep.
And I remember climbing all over this mini bike, and I can't remember what it was. It might have been a Honda Mini Trail or something. It was way too big, but it was still a smaller size bike. And I loved it. I just couldn't get enough of it. And then the carnies, the regional carnies, they come to every town. And
of course.
they had a fleet of QR50s.
Yep.
And you just ride them around in a circle. And I would blow every cent I had just riding these things around and around in a circle. And I thought it was the best thing ever. And then in about, I reckon I was 10, I convinced my parents that I could get a bike. We had a 40-acre property, and they bought me this old beat-up.
At Coomera?
Yeah, Coomera. Yeah, this old beat-up Suzuki DS80 with steel tank, twin shocks. It was red, had a yellow front guard, and it was a bit of a dunger. The kickstarter didn't work, but man, I loved that thing, and I just rode it every chance I could
Rode
get.
the wheels off it?
Yeah, I really did. And then, when I went to secondary school, there was all these kids from all these other regional schools, and I found out some other guy, you ride bikes too? Oh, that's cool. You race? What? What's that? I want to do that. And so I figured out how that all worked, and then I think it was year 10, so I would have been just before I turned 16. I lined up for my first race at Wonthaggi at the Bill Brown Memorial Motocross, and Anthony Gobert lapped me in practice, which was 3 laps.
He was pretty good back in the day.
Yeah, he went all right, and I really didn't go all right. So that's how it started.
What were you riding?
CR125.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it was an 88 or 89 model.
Yep.
88, I think. So I was a couple of years old. It wasn't the greatest thing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I could not believe how difficult it was, how hard it was. Like, all I'd done was ride around the paddocks at Mum and Dad's farm.
Yeah.
And then there's these bumps and ruts and arm pump. What the hell? I was like, my arms are falling off.
Yeah.
It was just so mind-blowing, but at the same time so addictive, and I couldn't wait to do it again.
And so where did you go from there? You obviously you had the motocross bug.
Yeah. Well, then I figured out that the Gippsland Regional Series happened, and became friends with a few others that lived locally that did it. So then I took part in that, and really enjoyed it. And then I think it was 96, I realised that there was this other thing called enduro and off-road. I was like, I'm going to have a go at that too. So I did a few cross-country events, and then that just opened up a whole new world that I never knew was there. And I probably gravitated more towards that because of the social side. It was very relaxed, very friendly, and the racing was really, really hard. Those 3-hour cross-countries were bloody brutal, but everything else about it was just so much fun. And I guess that became my main interest.
Yep. So you went from motocross to off-road?
To off-road. Yeah, motocross is still a passion. There is nothing better than watching the AMA outdoors. Like, that is so, so cool what those guys do. And then even come down here to watch at One Thaggy when the Pro MX is there. That level is bloody high. Like,
Oh, it's next level. And when you get to ride on the same track as these guys, and then you see how they do it,
yep.
they're just on another level.
Yeah, and I cannot comprehend how it works, how they read the track, and it's still
How they process the information that quickly.
Exactly. Yeah, we're very, very fortunate in this country to have the riders of that caliber, and so close to our doorstep here to come and watch it in One Thaggy or wherever you are. If you're near a track, it's so worth going. I took my wife, and she was really, really impressed and mind blown, really, to what they were doing, because she's only used to seeing me ride.
Yeah, I got a real eye-opener when I went up to Wodonga for round 3 of the Pro MX Championship this year, which of course was a mudder.
Horrific.
And seeing firsthand how they handled that track and the depth of the ruts. You know, I've spoken about this on a previous podcast, but it literally blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just seeing them tackle the ruts and negotiate the ruts, keep the speed up. The thing that stood out the most to me was that they were consistently doing it lap after lap without making a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the mud was one thing, but once the track started to dry up and it became more technical,
Right.
the consistency, and I think there's a saying about, you know, an amateur does something perfect once and a pro does it every time.
Yep.
And it was a real example of that.
And it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because you ride a bike yourself, or you watch those pro guys on telly, and it looks like it all just happens.
Yeah.
It flows and it's seamless and whatever. You get up close and it's violent.
Yeah.
There's nothing magical about it. It's violent. It's like an explosion.
Yeah.
And man, what those guys can do, it's incredible.
Yeah, and the way they keep the balance and stability on a bike that is just bucking around like a wild bronco, and the fact that actually in control of it, it's not like an animal. They're actually on the throttle and the brakes, and they're making it do what it needs to do. It's just a real balance between man and machine.
Yeah, it is, and it's you know that saying, only a surfer knows the feeling.
Yep.
That's the same with dirt bikes. I can't often convey what it feels like to a non-rider.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. And even though that's my job to be able to do that, I can't, because you need to experience it. You need to feel it. It's something else.
Yeah, 100%. I read an article a while back that was about the neurology of motocross riders.
Right.
And they did some neurological testing, and they were testing their hand-eye coordination and their response times, and they were doing like brain scans while they were undergoing these tests. And basically the areas of their brain that are responsible for their hand-eye coordination and their visual processing are uber developed, and there was areas of their brain that aren't related to motocross that were underdeveloped.
Wow.
And so their ability to process information and respond physically was way higher than your average person.
Uh-huh.
And it's because they've been riding motocross since they were so young. So the neurologist that was providing feedback on the tests was saying that a normal person will never get to that level, can't be at that level. By the time they're in their 20s and they're racing pro motocross, their brain is actually physically different to your average person. It's developed differently. And I thought that was really, really amazing.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll have to see if I can dig it up. Oh, it's probably going back 12 months.
Okay.
But they referred to it in one of the Kawasaki Science of Supercross things that they broadcast with the Supercross as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was super interesting though.
It makes me. I once said to Shane Watts, former world enduro champ, GNCC champ, I said, when did you know?
Yep.
And he looked at me. He's like, "Well, what do you mean? When did I know what?" I go, when did you realise that what you were doing was like at an awesome level? And he didn't understand my question. I said, "But how did you get to that, going that fast?" And he goes, "Mate, I'm trying just as hard as you are." He goes, "I'm just going faster."
Yeah.
That was his answer.
I've had almost the identical conversation with Peter Boyle.
Really?
And he goes, "If you want to go fast, you just got to do it." He goes, "You just don't want it enough." And I said, "Mate, I want it more than you ever know." And I said, "It doesn't matter how much I want it.
Uh-huh.
I will never be as fast as you."
Yeah.
And he goes, No, you just got to want it more. You just got to do it. He goes, just pin it.
Yep, righto.
Yeah. They probably aren't aware of their superhuman ability.
Well, but this is the thing, right? Like, riding bikes has never come easily to me.
Yep.
It's difficult. Every time I ride, it's a challenge, and I love it.
Yep.
I love it, but I've only ever, admittedly, I could have applied myself a lot more at certain times of my life, and done things differently. But you got to learn that, That's just part of I hate the word, that journey, but that's just part of life. You learn those things, and I don't know, I'm a slow learner or a late bloomer, whatever. It's all starting to make sense now, but yeah, I'm not that guy. I was never going to be that guy.
Yep.
Happy with where I am. I've got no ego about my riding. I know how good I'm not.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to ride with some of the best, and I know my place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can be comfortable and happy there.
Oh.
I'm in exactly the same boat, and I struggled for it when I actually got back into motocross because I had pretty much 25 years off a bike. I think I rode half a dozen times in that, but I raced as a kid, and I would have been faster and much more successful when I was on a KX60 even than I am now.
Yeah.
And when I got back into it, I actually went and watched a Pro MX out at Wonthaggi, and I watched the pro guys getting around, and I thought from the sidelines, I went, yeah, I can do that. And it was such a wake-up call when I got back into it. I was terrible. I'm still not great.
Yep.
But I was terrible, and it really took quite a while. I was so disappointed in myself and so frustrated, and I loved riding, but I wasn't even at the level that I was at when I was 12 years old.
Yep.
And I'm not still at that level, and I don't know if I'll ever be.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I have come to accept that, and it's now a different pathway ahead of me. It's a different journey, and it might be cliche, but I'm enjoying the journey that I'm on.
Mate, what do they say? With age comes wisdom.
Yeah.
Dirt bikes is such an ego-driven activity. Even trail guys that don't race.
Yep.
It's all about ego, how good you are and how can you be better than the next guy. There's so much ego to it. And even within media, I remember we were on this bike launch once. It was a Yamaha gig, and Grant O'Brien, Gobber is his nickname, really good rider. He's a bit older than me. Good journo. He's been around. He knows his stuff. We pulled up. We're in the middle of the bush somewhere. We pulled up, and this guy says to him, "Hey, Gobber, how you going?" He goes, "Yeah, good, mate." He goes, "Something wrong?" He goes, "Nah." He goes, "I just thought you'd be a bit better than that." And Gobber was pissed.
Yeah.
He was angry. And I understood it because I thought, this guy's not as good as him. Yeah, he's given him a piece of his mind.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure that Gobber's not like that anymore because he's a pretty cool cat and he wouldn't care these days. But at the time, it burned him.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. And I don't know, you just got to get over that at some stage because there's always someone better. It's like that in any sport, You might think you can handle yourself with the gloves on and there's always someone better.
Oh, for
You
sure.
just got to lose that ego.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny you say that. One of my regular riding buddies who's quite a bit better than me, but every weekend before we go, I always tell him, I'm going to hose you this weekend and you're terrible. And I can see it cuts him. Yeah, he doesn't like it because I'm not not quite at that level.
Yep.
It's quite fun.
There's no surer way to get under someone's skin that rides. Yeah.
And sure enough, we'll go riding and he'll have my number, but the next weekend I keep saying, you weren't that fast last weekend. This weekend it's and it keeps him coming back though.
But when you're comfortable, like obviously we are now, we're comfortable with our ability. And if someone gets their jollies out of beating me, I just have good on you, mate. Everyone can do that.
Yeah. So you've done quite a bit of off-road racing over the years. Tell me some of the sort of highlights of your riding career.
Probably the Think Desert race has got a really special place in my life, to be honest.
Yeah.
I remember reading about that in ADB and it just seemed so different, from growing up in the muddy green hills of South Gippsland, the outback. Oh, yeah, I loved Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
That whole bit. Yeah, exactly. And then I just thought, I got to get to that race one day. And my first stint at ADB that year, I'd only been there a few months, so I got the gig to go up and cover it in 1999 and ride it.
Yep.
And I just fell in love with the event. I fell in love with the town and the people. It's so different to anything else. There is nothing else like it. It's its own entity. You know, some people try and compare other events to it, but there is none. And I've ridden that 8 times.
Wow.
Now, I've been up there 20 times.
Yeah.
I haven't been for a couple of years, but I'm driving up in a couple of weeks to get back up just to watch and see my friends. That race is so unique. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, excuse my ignorance. I think bushriding is a dirty word. And I don't know a lot about Fink.
Right.
So, tell me more about it and what makes it so great.
Essentially, it's a 2-day race. So it's a one-way track. So you race from Alice Springs, 226 kilometres, I think it is, south, pretty much along the old Ghan railway line.
Yeah, yep.
And then you get to an Indigenous community called Apatula on the Fink River, and that's where you stop. And then you camp the night, and then you race back the next day.
Yep.
So, like I said, it's 226 kilometres long. Last year, David Walsh, the winner, he did it. Oh, mate, it was under an hour and 50 minutes.
Wow.
It's fast.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like highway driving either. It's rough and there's sand whoops.
It's rough. It's surprisingly, there's a lot more rock and gravel than people ever imagine out there. It's not all sand.
Okay.
There's a lot of sand dunes, but the thing about Fink is it's never the same. It's never it's like the ocean. You'll go there one day and it'll be these perfect rolling waves, and you'll go the next and there'll be a storm, or it might be like a lake. Fink changes a lot. The desert just changes.
Do you do the run on a single tank of fuel, or like how does that work?
No, so you can do it on a stock fuel tank, and you'd have to stop 3 times for fuel. Most guys try and stop twice, so they'll carry about 11, 12 litres. Some guys try and stop once.
So they carry it with them?
No. So they'll have a long range tank.
Yes.
And then they'll have fuel crews set down on the track.
Yep.
So you belt down to 80 kilometres, you would have done a recce with your crew and gone, okay, because it's just it's in the desert.
Yeah.
So there's no big sign saying, oh, stop here. And
Pit stop here, yeah. Grab a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Or unless the actual event runs fuel stops. So they have 3 along the way, and there'll be big signs saying club fuel stop at 60 kilometres, so you know where to pull up. You pay a fee, so you just pull up, they fill up your bike, and off you go.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, but it's a hard race because, I know, generally speaking, there's about 500 competitors. They run a prologue the day before the race starts, which is over a short distance. It might be a 5-kilometre track. I can't remember what it is exactly now. The fastest rider gets to leave first. So the top 20 riders leave 2 at a time.
Okay, yep.
So the advantage of that is, and they're a minute apart, the advantage of that is dust.
Yep.
So you can see where you're going. The rest, leaving grids of 5, 8, it depends. So you can't see. Unless you're in the top 20 and you're getting a good run, you're riding pretty much in dust the whole way unless there's a good crosswind.
Yeah. So it stays suspended in the air.
Yeah, because there's so much traffic. You might get a breather, but like the first 30 Ks, thick dust. You can't see. And there's clay pans and washouts, and it's like a war zone, that first 30 Ks. There's riders braining themselves everywhere because they, get a bit excited or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll get sections where, you'll hit top speed of whatever your bike can do.
Yep.
The top guys will be doing, maybe 170. There's all these wild rumours that guys do 200 kilometres an hour. That's all lies.
Yeah.
The average guy probably do about 130, 140 on the fast bits. And
That's still super fast on a dirt bike.
Super fast on a dirt bike. But then there's sections where you'll be in second gear over big rocky.
Oh, okay, yeah.
outcrops.
So there is like slower technical sections.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So it's sort of, once you get past the 80-kilometre marker, that's when the race sort of really starts.
Yep.
And then in the middle section, from about 110 Ks down to about 170 is the big man-eating mother whoops.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can drive a car through them.
Yep.
Yeah. So the track was graded fairly flat a couple of years ago, but now the bumps have returned. Looking forward to seeing how big they are this year because it separates the men from the boys. Like they're big. They're big.
So there is actually some preparation of the track. It's
Oh, generally for safety reasons, yeah. So with summer storms, with the cyclones up north or whatever, and then the rains will blow out. Once the cyclone's dissipated, there'll still be a lot of rain, and it'll cause a lot of rain ruts and gutters.
Yep.
And they're just unsafe. So, yeah, they have to be graded smooth. So there's always some ongoing works with the track for safety reasons. But they go through, the track runs through cattle stations as well. So there's cattle on it. Well, they're all cleared for race weekend.
Yeah.
But it just degenerates from over time.
Yeah.
It's a car and a bike race. So off trophy trucks and big buggies and all those crazy big horsepower things, they race it as well.
Time?
No, the cars go into AM.
Yep.
And then the bikes go into PM.
Yep. So they're all done.
But cars have hit cattle, kangaroos. There's a lot of camels out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cars go in the morning, which is safer for the bikes that leave in the afternoon.
Do you get donkeys out there as well? Like
I haven't seen a donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've seen dingoes, camels, cows.
That actually sounds pretty hairy.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Keeps you on the seat of your...
So addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for everyone, but I love it. And to see, like going back to that point we spoke about, the fast guys, I cannot comprehend how they do it. I just can't. I've done that race and my level best was 80th outright. And I went as hard as I could and did my best, and that was
That's
as
still
good
a good result.
Well, I was proud of it, and I still am. It is what it is. But those good guys, they are extraordinary. It's a different beast.
I saw a clip with AJ Catanzaro a while back where one of the guys he was coaching was saying about how high his level was.
Right.
And he made a comment that what you think of me is the way that I look at guys like Eli Tomac.
Right.
Like that's how big the gap is, even from a good pro to the top level guys. He said, I don't know how they do it.
There you go.
And I mean, think for me, I've seen it obviously on TV. I've seen footage of it. It looks insane.
It is. Yep. It's awesome. It's a race that has to be treated with respect.
Yeah.
A lot of guys see the vision, online or on tape or whatever, and they go, okay, so you got there, you got to ride fast. It's the quickest way to the emergency bay.
Or worse, yeah.
Or worse, and it's happened, unfortunately. It's a place that people often underestimate how remote it is.
Yeah, well, I guess when there's that many people and it's such a big event, it'd be pretty easy to start to believe that you're sort of in a civilized area.
Yeah, but you're not. You're miles away, and it's just inhospitable. It's hard and it's unforgiving, but it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful.
Of course, yeah.
But if you respect, and there's sayings up there that the desert decides what happens. A lot of people get a bit weirded out about it or whatever, but yeah, you have to respect your environment and look after yourself. And it's nothing like what we do. It's nothing like you get up there, and Ben Grabham said this to me. He goes, everything you think you know about setting up a bike, chuck it out the window. It doesn't apply. He goes, this is different. We'll start again. And he's right.
Yeah.
Like what a setup we will run down here does not work up there. It's just different.
So what do you do to set the bike up?
Well, your suspension needs to be totally different because you're at mega high speed. So you've got to handle everything from like really rough, broken up clay, chop and rocks to whoops that are 1.5 meters high in deep sand.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get a bike to do that?
There's a compromise, obviously.
Yeah, so there's not that many sharp turns. So you basically want the thing to go in a straight line and stay in a straight line. It's just different.
A shallower rake on the forks.
Yeah, you generally get the thing to squat more in the back.
Yep.
You slide your forks down so that they're flat at the top, triple clamp. So, you've got them raked out as much as possible.
Yep.
Chop it out, really.
Yep.
Your rebound needs to be super fast to cope with the speeds that you're at. It's just different.
18-inch back wheels and...
Yeah, 18-inch rear wheels, bigger fuel tanks. You need a steering damper to be safe, really. Little things like a lot of guys run the road bike foam hand grips.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, just to take out some further vibrations. They'll have super high seats with heaps of padding.
Yep.
Not like a slim little motocross seat. You don't want that because you get belted.
Yeah. And they're doing it continuously, the guys that are at the top from start to finish, apart from a fuel stop.
Yep. They'll stop twice and for a matter of seconds. It'll be long enough to fill their fuel tank. They might change their goggles and maybe take an energy gel and they're gone.
Well, for someone that gets arm pump after 2 laps on a motocross track, that for me, again, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, they wrestle these bikes. When the whoops are big, it's impressive. Like those guys are just hammering.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got this thing that's trying to kick you off, and you're trying your damnedest to get there. And
Yeah, I mean, setup can only absorb so much, and the rest goes into the rider.
Yeah, and when you first go up there, it's really hard to gauge the speed and the distance because, what do we average on a track? 30, 40 Ks an hour?
Yeah, probably
maybe,
40, yeah.
Maybe. And up there, what was Toby averaging, like 110? So you ride along and you see a corner and then you sort of back off and you're like, oh, I'm not there yet. And then you hold it on a bit more, but then there might be a big washout that you hadn't seen. And, yeah, it's scary.
So do you get a chance to see the course before you do it at all? I've heard of guys going up in choppers and...
Yeah, generally speaking, you just jump on a bike and ride the track, but it's public land. Essentially,
so you can go there at other times?
At any time of the year, but you need to be licensed and registered. It's just the road rules still apply. So, yeah, it's open, and I would absolutely recommend people go and have a look at the track before they even think about riding it. And then if they do want to ride it, sign up with like Outback Adventure Tours or Grabbo's Track and Trail, and they'll take you down and teach you, because a lot of people get there on their first ride and come unstuck and have permanent injuries and disabilities because of they've been a bit naive.
Yeah. Yep. So like the 2 weeks leading up to the event, is it just chaos up there with everyone trying to practice and...
Yeah.
So how do they manage riders coming in opposite directions and things like that during those times?
Yeah, it's a unofficial rule that everyone follows. So you only head south before midday, and you only head north after midday.
Yep.
So there's big signs on the side of the track that describe it. Unfortunately, some people have ignored it in the past, and there's been some really serious accidents.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The best way to play it safe is head south, and then when it gets to 11:30 a.m, get off the track. Don't get back on the track until 12:30 p.m.
So give yourself a real buffer.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. It's not uncommon to see people do it. And sometimes, people from interstate haven't adjusted their watches or whatever. But geez, man, it's literally life and death.
Yeah. On a different sort of pace, I believe you've done the Simpson Desert Crossing as well with mates in 2018.
Yeah. Actually, that was with one of my best mates that lives in Alice Springs. He came up with the idea, and he'd never done it. It was on my bucket list. So, yeah, there was 4 of us that rode. We rode from my friend Rick Hall's house in Alice Springs, rode across to Birdsville.
So was it with your own bikes? It wasn't part of a tour or anything like that?
No, I actually bought a map from the four-wheel drive place here in Wonthaggi.
Yeah.
And just sort of drew a line. And, there's only really one way to go.
Yeah.
But we had 2 mates in 2 Land Cruisers. So we carried, fuel, food, and our swags and whatever. And it was a great experience. Geez, it's beautiful out there.
Yeah.
It was a really magic time. And just because we had such a close-knit, cool group of guys, it was awesome.
And how long did you give yourself?
It took us 3 days to cross, because you could carry more fuel, but you wouldn't have much fun. So we just rode stock bikes, stock fuel tanks. So 9, 10 litres. You'd run out, we'd just pull up, hang out, talk smack, enjoy where we were, and then the boys would catch up in the cruisers. They'd fill us up, and off we'd go again. And then when the sun started to get low in the afternoon, we'd sort of scout around for somewhere to camp, clear the campsite. By the time we'd done that, the cruisers had rocked up, and we'd cook up a feed and camp out, and it was magic.
Sounds magical,
mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. Woke up one morning and there was about 5 camels having a look. See what we were doing. Had a dingo follow us for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally followed us from camp to camp.
Oh, wow. So, that's covering a lot of ground.
Yeah,
that's what they do out there.
Yeah, just looking for a drink or a feed or whatever.
Yeah, Daryl Beattie does Simpson Desert Crossings, doesn't he? Yeah. My dad was the one that got me into motocross, and he rode dirt bikes for a little while and rode bikes his whole life.
Right.
And I would have always loved to have done the Simpson Desert Crossing. We spoke about it, but by that stage he was probably a bit old, and he's passed away now. But that was something I would have loved to have done when I was younger.
Yeah, it really is a fantastic ride. There's probably a bit more traffic on there than I anticipated.
Oh, really?
Both ways. There are a lot of full drives.
Yep.
That seem to have complete disregard for anyone that's not in a four-wheel drive. Not dirt bike friendly. We got yelled at quite a few times.
Yes, yep.
I don't know why, but that's how they are.
Yep. It's like surfers versus bodyboarders,
Yeah,
and skaters versus scooter riders and bike riders, and it's in every
To
sport.
some degree, I think they don't understand dirt bikers, and I think we may have scared some of them because it's sand, right? You've got to try and keep the power on, or you just got to fall off.
Yeah.
You're going to fall over. And you're coming up these sand dunes blind, you can't see them, and we can't just stop, or you'll go back down to the bottom, tumbling down. So you've got to try and navigate around them, and a few of them got cranky about that. But at the same time, we were stopped waiting for our Land Cruisers to catch up to fill us up one day, and a fleet of Porsches came along. These four-wheel drive Porsches are all international guests on this. They were actually driving from, I think it was Margaret River to Cairns.
Wow.
And they were being supported by local guides. They were in these big...
That's a way to see the Australian outback.
Oh, mate. Yeah. They were in these like unimogs that supported them.
Yep.
Or vehicles like that. And we watched these guys try and get up these dunes and just make a meal of it. And we sat there having a laugh. And the tour guides, he was the sweet vehicle. We had a great chat to him. And then they moved on, and he goes, all right, see you boys. Yep, catch up. We were just laying around in the sand. We had nothing with us. We were just laying there. He drove about 50 metres, stopped, reversed back about 30 metres. He got out, and I said, hey, you all right, mate? And he goes, yep. And he's opened the side doors. He's pulled out 4 cans of Coke and walked them over to us. He goes, yeah, boys, it looked like you needed a drink. And off he went. Like, so
What
cool.
a legend.
We were in the middle of nowhere. Didn't
Yeah.
know the guy. Didn't want anything. It was the best.
Yeah. And now it's something that you've remembered for, and you'll
100%.
remember for your whole life.
It's, well, when we got, there's a big sand dune just out of Birdsville called Big Red. It's the big famous sand dune.
Yep.
We're on top of it taking photos and mucking around, and we could see this bike in the distance, and this guy's wound this thing up. Like, well, he's going to have a crack. It was a DR650, massive fuel tank on it. And he got about 10 metres from the top, and he was bogged. He couldn't get up. So we dragged him up, and he was a bit worried about his fuel. Did he have enough to get to Birdsville? We said, so we topped him up, patted him on the back, off he went. We rode another 2 days back across the desert, and we got to, not Dalhousie. What's the name of that roadhouse? Oh, there's one just as you come out of the desert. It's the first place to get fuel, food, drinks, whatever. We stopped there one morning. On our morning, we were going to ride back into Alice. Walked in, and this lady goes, is there a Tuffy in this group? I said, yeah, that's me. She goes, there's $50 on the bar for you from the bloke on Big Red.
Oh, that's unreal.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like this, he did know me that. So I ordered a round of coffees and cake for all the boys, warmed us up a bit, and off he went. But that's just a brief snapshot of the people you come across in the outback. People tend to look after each other.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And I guess you're out there having the same sort of experience.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. So what other sort of places and rides have you done that you've been around,
yeah.
especially around Australia?
I've been to Cape York a few times. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, I guess. That was all magazine jobs.
Yep.
I did it once in 97 before I started with them because I was curious about it.
What's it like doing Cape York on a bike?
Oh, it's awesome, man. Especially when you do it with a tour company because you're looked after.
Yeah.
Like you ride their DRZ 400s or whatever, and you pull up and there's smoko, there's coffee and cake and whatever, and you cruise off, and then they have salad rolls for lunch, and you pull up and there's a tent, you sleep in that, and the riding is not that challenging for, like you ride motocross, you do it easily. But the
If there's
places,
sand involved, definitely not.
but the places you visit are incredible.
Yeah.
Twin Falls and Fruitbat Falls, and to ride through the Daintree, and to get to the top, it's a thrill. There's still World War II plane wrecks up there that you get to see. Some Indigenous art. It's really, really cool.
I love the landscape up north. I haven't been to Cape York, but I've been to North Queensland, far North Queensland.
Right.
And, it's beautiful up there.
It is.
I actually never thought of riding a dirt bike through there though.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what it's like now. I know there's been a lot of road development up there because it's super popular with the four-wheel drive community. So I no doubt it has changed a lot. But one where really memorable one was from Broome into the Kimberley. We did that for a week. and that was extraordinary. Yeah, the places we saw there were incredible. Yeah, a lot of Indigenous art and out on some stations and some amazing waterfalls.
Yeah.
And that was pretty remote. Didn't see a lot of people on that ride. That was fantastic. So Australian rides, we're so lucky, mate. This country's incredible. Just a few weeks ago, I was down on the west coast of Tasmania.
Yeah.
And that was wild. That made Cape York look like a Sunday trail ride.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was wild. It was awesome. It was a real challenge.
Yep.
But
Like muddy or just difficult terrain?
I've never ridden anything as slippery in my entire life for the first 2 days. And then we hit the beach and the sand, it was the best sand riding I've done. We were on a beach, like 40 Ks down this beach, just top gear. And then you get to you see these sand dunes and they dwarfed Big Red in The Simpson. They were huge, massive. And it's totally fine and perfectly legal and acceptable just to bang it down a couple of gears, hold it pinned and just up to the top. And yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah. Are you running sand tyres or what were you running out there?
No, you got to run road legal tyres.
Well, that's why I asked. I was like, that's a challenge in itself.
Oh, the bean rating is not much better than wet sand.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It was awesome. So yeah, we're so lucky in this country to have such diverse riding available to us.
So I have to ask, you've had quite the career in the industry. Who are the biggest and best and maybe even the worst personalities that you've met over the years?
Jeez, put me on the spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, I've met some great riders that have given me their time and open up their personal life and taught me a lot, which I'm forever grateful for.
Yeah.
Josh Strang is one that sticks out, an Aussie guy and living the good life in America. He's been there for 17 years now on the Grand National Cross Country Circuit.
Yep.
He was 2010 GNCC champ. He's a real journeyman of the sport, and I've been over there a couple of times to visit him. I rode his championship-winning bike at a race. I rode the amateurs in the morning, and that was a wild experience. Josh is great. He's so passionate, and he's a real competitor, and he's a standout. As is Ben Grabham.
Yep.
What that guy has achieved here is extraordinary, and he's still doing it. He's as hard as nails. Glenn Carney is another one. There's a thing about redheads.
It's the same in motocross.
Mate, it is. Yep. RC, Villapoto, and we've got Grabbo and Carney in the off-road scene. Those two boys are as tough as nails. They never, ever, ever, ever give up. They've been really cool guys to meet and know.
Yeah.
And become quite good friends with a former enduro racer called Jai Willis.
Yep.
He lives in Darwin now, and he became a great mate. And he taught me a lot of lessons. Like he was a bit of a lad's lad in the early days, and then when he decided to get serious, he was fair income and he gave it everything he had, and he taught me all the little 1%ers count, all of them. The tiniest things, just do them properly. Don't worry about the fancy stuff. Do the tiny things. And if I'm leaving at 7 and you're not here, I'm gone.
Yep.
You're walking. Like, that's how it was. Yeah, he's...
Man that lives by his principles.
Yeah, so they're probably just a few of the racer guys that stand out. And industry people, Andrew Clubb, the guy that hired me and gave me a chance from nowhere, he's still doing it. He's a professional. He knows publishing inside out. Loves to get ink on his fingers, as he says. He's the real standout guy for me, and he gave me a lot of his time and sort of showed me the way, kicked me up the bum when I needed it, pushed me to be better.
Yeah.
When I first started with him, we were still shooting film. We didn't have digital cameras.
Oh.
Sent me up to, I think it was the day we went up to Chad's house, and he said, "Did you get the shot?" And I said, I don't know. And he swore at me like in the biggest way, and he goes, "How can you not know?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But now I know.
Yeah.
I know if I've nailed it straight away.
For sure.
Yeah. So he is a stalwart of the industry and well respected. He's known around the world for his moto journalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's helped me a lot. But yeah, there's definitely some colourful characters out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Most people know who they are. Yeah, there's some prickly ones for sure.
My childhood hero, Craig Dack, I think you've done a bit with him.
Yeah, he was my childhood hero too. I had posters of him on my wall.
Same, yeah.
And we've crossed paths a lot. I've done a number of stories on his riders and been around, and it's funny. Like it sounds stupid, but I still get a kick out of him answering my calls. My childhood hero will take my call and have a joke with me. But that guy, he's to be admired. Like what he has achieved post-race career, he's the most successful motocross team this country has seen. It's of the highest order. They don't imitate anyone. They don't try to be anyone else.
Yeah.
They just do what they do, and they do it incredibly well. And he's got a great team of people around him that have been with him for a long time, like Gary Benn.
Yeah.
Man, what that guy doesn't know. Someone once said that he's forgotten more than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. He's another one that gives me his time. And Brad McAlpine,
Yeah.
you know, he's been around an awful lot too. So when you look at the experience of just those three guys, that's an outfit to be admired. And it's pretty cool. There was an industry night for Monza Imports last year, a notable celebration for how long they've been in the industry. And
I saw some photos from that.
when the speeches kicked off, it was just by chance. I had Steve Gall on one side and Dakar on the other because we'd just been having a chat. And I thought, geez, if you told me that as a kid, I would have been dancing on the clouds. But it's nice to be able to speak to those guys socially and professionally. And I guess it's, I'm proud of the fact that they actually take me seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to be proud of. But look, I think you've got the runs on the board. You've been around long enough. You're well known in the industry. You're good at what you do. There's no reason they shouldn't take you seriously.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm dumb enough not to have left the industry and done something better.
It deserves respect. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. You've only been doing it for the big bucks, that's all.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Jeez, far out, mate. I could definitely make more money being a tradie.
Yeah.
But I definitely know it wouldn't be as much fun.
Or working at Aldi or
Yeah.
or Macca's.
Or that too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a good life. And publishing in particular it's a tough gig. And people say, oh, gee, you got the greatest job. And yeah, it's a great job, but it's a job.
Yeah.
It's still a job.
Yeah, it's got good bits and bad bits and everything in between.
Yeah, and I'm not doing it full time anymore, and I don't want to, but I still love the dirt bike industry, and I love what Australia contributes to it and what we have to offer. So I'd like to stick around for a while yet.
Well, we're talking about other people. I hear there's a bit of a funny story about how you met Steve Powell.
Oh, Powley. Yeah. I was racing the Gippsland motocross champs in 98 at a low level, and I think he won it that year. I'm pretty sure he won it that year. And so I knew his name, but I never knew who he was. We were moving in different circles, whatever. And then it was 2000 and, was it 1 or 2? I can't really remember. No, it was 2002. I was doing a bit of work for CDR Yamaha. Dakar was in the States at Yamaha of Troy.
Yep.
And they needed a hand with their media. So I'd come on board for race weekends. We went down to Penguin for Australian Motocross Champs, and we went across on the boat. And Powley was working for, I think he was with Suzuki at the time. And so we're on the ferry from Melbourne to Devonport, and there was a bunch of riders on there, none of the top guys because I think they all flew. So Powley's obviously driving down, and here he is on the dance floor, dancing his heart out with Byron Draper, who I think was working for Lyndon Heffernan at the time, and those two were just carving it up, didn't care. No one else was around. They were having a great time.
No one else on the dance floor?
No, but we were all in stitches, and that was the first time I really sort of got to know him and what he was really like.
Yeah.
But he's actually a great mate now, and we're fortunate to have his workshop just down the road.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he's done my suspension. He's done my rebuilds.
Right.
I've got lots of little bits of him that get ignition.
Yeah. Great mechanic, but he's not a bad dancer.
Yeah. Well, I'd want to hope his mechanicking's better than his dancing anyway.
Look, you can't take life too seriously. I mean, you got to be good at your job, do what you do, and do what you say. But there's got to be time for a laugh.
Oh, definitely. I think that's the direction, and it's taken a long time in my life to learn that. But that's the direction I'm taking it now for sure.
Cool.
All right. Well, I've taken up just about enough of your time tonight. But before we go, what's next for Tuffy?
Mate, I don't know. I'm at a bit of a crossroads, I guess. Some might call it a midlife crisis. I don't know. I'm not sure, mate. I'll definitely be still filing feature stories for ADB from time to time.
Yep.
I'd like to try and get to a couple of race events myself this year, to do a couple of off-road races. I think I did 3 or 4 last year. I just think it's a great reality check.
You're going to ride the beater?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I want that to be part of my testing time with that. The whole process of testing that bike is to go and race it. But that's probably it, mate. I've got a young family of 1 son who's 6, and my wife, she's got a busy business. So, life's busy, as you know, with kids. I got my boy on a peewee at the moment.
I was about to say, is moto dad life?
Moto dad. I never wanted to be a moto dad, but I think I am one. No, he's on a sweet little Peewee 50 that was restored by Ryan Cossins from Tweak Performance.
Yep.
And the thing is just, it's beautiful. Yeah. I've got this, I had this thing in my mind where I didn't want him to grow up having new things all the time, just to be, I didn't want him a spoilt kid. And I found this wreck, and Ryan did it up, and when he delivered it, it was just such a beautiful resto. I felt guilty getting the bike dirty, but my boy loves riding it.
So good.
Yeah. So we ride from time to time. He's actually banned for it at the moment for back chatting and being a smart ass. But
the life lessons of motocross begin early.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he might be allowed back on that soon. So yeah, just dad life and me trying to ride when I can, which is not that often, probably once a month here or there, whenever I can. I still love to ride. The riding is still my passion.
Yeah.
I get cranky if I can't. My wife will even tell me that I need to go for a ride from time to time.
I'm in exactly the same boat.
Yeah. She pulled me up one day. We were shopping in Woolies or somewhere, and I was on the handlebars of the shopping trolley making bike noises. She told me I was an idiot and I should go riding. There's all these telltale signs that I'm overdue.
Yeah, when you're in a dry spell, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's me, mate. Hopefully I'll see you at the track.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks heaps for coming on and doing the podcast with me. It's been great having you, and I've loved hearing your stories, and I'm sure there's about 1,000 more that I haven't heard yet. So I might have to get you back at some point.
Mate, I would love that. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. And that just about brings us to the end of this episode. It's been so cool having Tuffy in studio. Thanks again for taking the time to join me in the Wolf Den and allowing me an opportunity to bring a little bit of your story to our listeners. I've enjoyed it immensely. And once again, thanks to our sponsors, Death Grip Products, Works Racing, and Wolf Building Compliance. I invest a lot of time and money into producing these episodes, and we're only just starting out, so any support we can get is much appreciated. I'm committed to growing Mental for Moto, and if you like what we're doing and are interested in helping out as a sponsor, I'd love to chat and work out how we can best help promote your product or business in return. And most important of all, thank you to you people for listening. Subscribing to our channels and sharing and liking our content also helps us out immensely and will keep the Mental for Moto dream alive. That's it from me for another episode. Until next time, see ya.